Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah, always exciting to be back.
And this time we're going to a galaxy far, far away, because we are talking about the untold story of how Star Wars came to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're a big Star Wars fan.
I am, big fan.
And what's even more cool is that our source material for this deep dive is actually in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
Which just gives us that global perspective right from the start. So let's set the scene here. It's 1971. A young George Lucas, fresh off of directing his very first film, THX 1138. Have you ever seen that?
I have seen that one, yeah.
It's a dystopian sci-fi flick, right? Think
it's a trip. Yeah, very bleak. Yeah.
Very bleak.
Almost like a precursor to like the Hunger Games, kind of.
Yes, exactly.
But set in this, this really stark, oppressive world.
Very, very stark, very, oppressive world.
Yeah, and you can see, I mean, it's so different from Star Wars on the surface.
Right.
But you can see how, like, certain themes that Lucas would return to over and over again are already kind of bubbling up in that film.
Those little seeds.
Exactly, those seeds.
Those little seeds of rebellion against this oppressive regime and this fascination with technology. Like you said, very different.
Right.
But you can see how those things might...
The DNA's there?
The DNA's there.
Yeah.
It's like those early sketches
exactly
that artists do, and you can kind of see like, oh, there it is. I see where you were going.
Exactly.
Okay. So he makes this movie, THX 1138.
Mm-hmm.
But get this. While he's working on THX, he's already pitching 2 new film ideas.
Okay.
2. One, American Graffiti. The other one, Star Wars.
Wow. And he's pitching them at the same time?
At the same time.
Wow.
What do you think got rejected?
I mean, I know the answer, but twice.
It's got to be Star Wars, right?
Star Wars gets rejected twice.
Twice. I can't believe that.
It was thought to be too out there.
Too risky.
Yeah, they probably.
And American Graffiti, though.
Safe bet.
Safe bet. With its nostalgic charm.
Yeah.
So, American Graffiti, I mean, how do you think, Star Wars is Star Wars, but how big of a deal was American Graffiti for George Lucas?
American Graffiti was huge for Lucas. I mean, it was a massive hit. Put him on the map as a director.
Totally.
But not only that, it also introduced him to Harrison Ford.
Yes.
Who at the time was, get this, working as a carpenter to supplement his acting income. Can you imagine?
Wow. That's incredible. So without...
sliding doors, right.
Without American Graffiti.
Yeah.
No Harrison Ford.
Maybe Han Solo?
Maybe no Han Solo.
It's wild, yeah.
I mean, come on,
It makes you wonder
I know.
how many other, future Han Solos are out there, just, building decks.
Building decks, exactly.
Mm.
So because of that, Alan Ladd Jr. at 20th Century Fox decides to take a chance on Lucas and Greenlight's Star Wars.
Wow.
The rest, as they say.
First history. But I want to rewind because we talked about how these ideas were kind of brewing for Lucas.
Mm-hmm.
His initial concept for Star Wars was dramatically different.
Okay.
He started with a story called The Journal of the Whills.
The Journal of the Whills. Okay.
Tell me more about this.
Okay. So this is like Lucas's very, very first step into this galaxy far, far away.
Okay.
And the story revolved around this character named C.J. Thorpe, who was like a young pilot in training.
Okay.
And his mentor was this seasoned veteran named Mace Windu.
Wait, Mace Windu?
Mace Windu.
Like Mace Windu?
Yes.
That's incredible. So are you telling me that Mace Windu?
It was there all along.
From the prequels was actually a callback to this early concept.
100%. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's like finding, like an early draft of like a classic novel or something.
Exactly.
And you're like, oh my gosh, look at those little sparks of brilliance. Yeah, it's like those little Easter eggs that, they only make sense later. But
right, exactly.
It's just so cool to see, how these ideas were percolating.
So, okay. How similar was the Journal of the Whills to the Star Wars that we know and love?
To be honest, it was very, very, very rough draft.
Okay.
I mean, the plot itself was incredibly convoluted. It dealt with these mystical beings called, you guessed it, the Whills, who controlled the balance of the universe.
Okay, so we're talking like grand cosmic forces here.
Oh, yeah. Big time, yeah.
Not quite the rebellion versus the Empire.
They're quite there yet.
Yeah, okay.
But, even though the names and the plot and, pretty much everything changed, you can see the seeds of what Star Wars would become.
Okay.
Like that, that classic hero's journey,
right.
the mentor-student dynamic that we see with Luke and Obi-Wan, the struggle between good and evil. I mean, it's all there.
Yeah.
It just needed to be, kind of molded and shaped.
Yeah, it needed that Lucas magic.
Exactly.
To really bring it to life.
Exactly.
And speaking of, those iconic elements of Star Wars, I always think about the fact that Lucas drew inspiration from some pretty unexpected places. I mean, we're talking samurai films.
Yeah.
We're talking Flash Gordon comics.
It was classic.
It's kind of amazing.
Yeah. I mean, Lucas has always been very open about how much Akira Kurosawa's samurai films influenced him.
Right.
Especially The Hidden Fortress.
Yeah.
I mean, if you watch that movie and then you watch Star Wars, you can see it, like borrowed shots.
Yeah.
The pacing, even the plot structure, it's all there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you've got Flash Gordon, which, those old serials from the 30s with their, like, kind of cheesy effects and over-the-top villains.
Right.
But there's a certain charm to them.
Sure.
And I think Lucas really tapped into that same kind of sense of adventure.
Just sense of fun, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's pure escapism, and I think that's part of what makes Star Wars so enduring.
Yeah, it's like those childhood experiences, right? They just stay with you. They shape your creative journey.
Totally, totally. And speaking of unexpected, Luke Skywalker himself wasn't always the farm boy we meet in A New Hope.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Huh. I always thought of him as kind of that archetypal hero.
Right.
Like the farm boy who dreams of adventure.
Sure.
What other versions did they play around with?
Well, in some of the very early drafts, Luke was actually much older and more cynical. Almost like a grizzled veteran instead of the wide-eyed idealist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and get this, he wasn't even always Luke Skywalker.
Oh, really? What was he?
Originally, he was Star Killer.
Star Killer.
Yeah.
That's a way more intense name.
Right, way more, like, kind of brooding. Yeah.
It's less hopeful.
Yeah.
It's
Star Killer.
Star Killer. That's
It's a cool name.
It's a cool name, but yeah, I can see how that would have been a very, very different feel. What do you think? Prompted that shift from this like kind of older, more jaded Luke to the young, hopeful character that we meet?
Well, I think Lucas realized that to create that truly mythic hero's journey, Luke needed to start from a place of innocence. He needed to be tested, He needed to earn that wisdom.
Right.
And I think, starting him off as this more experienced character, it just wouldn't have had the same impact.
Right. And it's interesting because you think about how those subtle shifts can make such a huge difference.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean,
it's all interconnected.
Exactly.
Right.
And speaking of major shifts, one of the most iconic parts of Star Wars, in my opinion, is the twist.
Oh, yeah.
That Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Come on.
But that wasn't even the original plan, right?
No.
Like, that was...
Oh, another Lucas brainchild mid-production,
Wow. So that wasn't something that he had in mind from the very beginning? Not at all. That bombshell was actually conceived while he was working on Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like those moments in a great novel, right?
Yes.
Where the author throws in a twist.
Yes.
That completely reframes everything that came before it.
Exactly.
And you're just like, what? It makes you wonder, too, like how differently the first film might have played out if he had that twist in mind from the very get-go.
Totally. It's like, would he have planted those seeds?
Right.
Would he have...
It makes you think about the whole thing differently.
It changes everything. Yeah. And it's so interesting to kind of dive into those early drafts.
Yeah.
And see how those characters and storylines evolved over time. It really is like watching a galaxy be born,
Literally, yeah.
Like, for instance, remember how we were talking about Luke starting out as this older, more cynical character?
Yeah. Star Killer. Totally different vibe.
Yeah, totally. So by the second draft, Lucas had already reimagined Luke as that young, farm boy yearning for adventure that we all know and love.
Right.
He's still on Tatooine. He's still, longing to get off world and do something bigger.
Yeah.
But even little details were different. Like his Uncle Owen was originally named Owen Lars instead of Ben.
Really? I never knew that.
Yeah, it's wild. It just goes to show you how much thought and care Lucas put into crafting even the smallest details of this universe.
Totally. And it makes you wonder if there were other alternate names floating around for other characters, too.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
That we might uncover someday.
Oh, yeah. Tons of hidden gems in those archives.
I'm sure.
But, speaking of crafting the universe, even the concept of the Force itself went through some interesting revisions.
Okay, yeah, how so?
So in that second draft, the Force was present.
Okay.
But it was a lot more mystical, almost magical.
Okay.
It wasn't yet that unifying energy field connecting all living things that we see in the final film.
Right, right.
So it was more about, these ancient powers and mysterious abilities.
Okay, interesting. So it sounds like they kind of grounded the Force more in science.
Exactly.
As the story evolved, right?
Yeah, it went from being this, almost supernatural force to something that was more tangible, more explainable even.
Right, and it kind of makes it, more accessible too, right?
Yeah.
It's not just this magical thing that only a select few can tap into.
Exactly.
It's something that exists within everyone.
100%.
Very cool. Were there any big changes to the villains?
Oh, yeah. Big time. You'd be surprised to know that Darth Vader wasn't always the central villain.
Wait, really? Darth Vader wasn't always the ultimate baddie. I can't even imagine.
I know, right? It's crazy. In one early draft, Darth Vader was actually more of a secondary villain.
Okay.
He was like an enforcer working for someone even more powerful and sinister.
Okay, who was this mysterious big bad?
Get this. This mysterious villain was called Darth Cousteau.
Darth Cousteau.
You got it. Darth Cousteau?
Like Jacques Cousteau, the oceanographer?
The one and only.
Wow.
Yeah. Apparently, Lucas was envisioning this villain who was obsessed with deep-sea creatures and had somehow weaponized them.
Okay, that's amazing. I never would have pictured that.
Right. I mean, it's kind of hilarious to think about now, but hey, even the greatest minds need to experiment.
Totally. You've got to try things out, see what sticks.
Exactly. Not every idea is a winner. Sometimes you have to let go of what's not working to make room for something truly special.
That's a good point. Sometimes you got to just, go with your gut and be willing to let go of something, even if you're attached to it.
Yeah, it's all part of the creative process, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
But it's amazing to think that through all of those revisions and changes, the core of what makes Star Wars so compelling remained a constant, right? That theme of hope, even in the face of impossible odds.
Absolutely.
That never went away.
That's the heart of Star Wars, right? That belief that even ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they have hope and they're willing to fight for what they believe in.
Yeah. That's why we keep coming back to these stories.
100%. It's that timeless message of hope and resilience that resonates with audiences across generations.
So true.
It's a story that speaks to our shared human experience, our desire to believe in something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
Our capacity for courage and compassion, even when things are tough. That's what makes Star Wars so powerful.
Okay, so we've talked about characters, plot, themes.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about the title.
Yeah.
Was it always destined to be Star Wars?
You would think, right. Such an iconic title.
Right. It just fits.
But believe it or not, it wasn't always Star Wars.
No. Really? Okay, I need to hear about this.
Yeah.
What were some of the other contenders? I guess spill the tea. What other titles were in the running?
Well, you're going to love this. Remember that early concept we talked about?
The Journal of the Wills.
Bingo. At one point, Lucas actually toyed with the idea of calling the film The Adventures of Luke Starkiller, as taken from the Journal of the Wills, Saga Sar Star Wars.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's a mouthful. The Adventures of Luke Starkiller is taken from the Journal of the Wills saga. I mean, come on.
Right. Try fitting that on a movie poster.
No kidding. Talk about a title only a mother could love.
But hey, at least you got to admire the enthusiasm.
Oh, for sure. It's like they say, go big or go home.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see why they ended up going with something a little more, shall we say, streamlined.
Yeah, Star Wars has a certain ring to it, don't you think? Short, sweet, to the point.
It's iconic. And you know what? It totally works. You hear those two words and you instantly know you're in for an epic space adventure.
Exactly. It's become part of the cultural lexicon. But it is kind of fun to imagine what might have been, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's like peeking into an alternate universe where Star Wars is playing at the theater with that whole title scrolling across the marquee.
The mind boggles. But all jokes aside, it's fascinating to see how those early ideas, even the ones that got left behind, still kind of lingered in the background as the project evolved.
Totally. It's like those old family recipes, you know? You open up Grandma's cookbook and you find her famous cookie recipe, but then you see all these little notes scribbled in the margins where she was experimenting with the different ingredients, or almost called them galactic delights instead.
I love that. It's those little glimpses behind the curtain that make the creative process so fascinating.
Absolutely. And, for all the twists and turns and near misses, that first film, which premiered simply as Star Wars back in '77, well, it became a phenomenon.
It sure did. It wasn't even known as Episode 4 A New Hope until later.
Right.
Lucas always had a grand vision, but even he couldn't have predicted the impact that first film would have.
It's mind-blowing when you think about it. This whole sprawling saga, this entire universe that we've come to know and love, it all started with one filmmaker's passion project.
And a whole lot of imagination.
And let's not forget the perseverance. I mean, we can't gloss over the fact that Star Wars was rejected multiple times before it finally found a home.
That's a good point. It's a good reminder that even the most groundbreaking, most influential ideas often face an uphill battle.
It really speaks to the power of believing in your own vision, even when others might not see it yet.
Absolutely. And sometimes you got to trust your gut and go for it, even if it means going against the grain.
Well said. And on that note, I think this deep dive has been an incredible journey, wouldn't you say?
100%. We've gone from those humble beginnings to the moments that shape the Star Wars we know and love today.
We've seen how much can change during the creative process, how those early drafts were like a testing ground for ideas, and yet how those core themes of hope, adventure, and good versus evil, those never wavered.
Exactly. It's a testament to the power of those universal themes, those stories that resonate with us on a deep human level.
And it makes you wonder, what other stories are out there, hidden away in journals and notebooks, just waiting to be discovered and shared with the world? Maybe the next Star Wars is just around the corner, waiting for someone with a bold vision and the courage to bring it to life. Thanks for joining us for this epic deep dive into the origins of Star Wars. May the Force be with you,